This week's episode is brought to you by Wedding Post House and Creative Cabana. Hello and welcome to How to Film Weddings. My name is John Bunn and we're back with a brand new episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast. Today I have my good friend Sam Jacobson on with me. That's Sam Jacobson. I said that weird, but he is on to talk to me about how to get results in 2025. We've had a lot of episodes that kind of are a different tenor with How to Film Weddings over the last few weeks, and I've gotten a lot of DMs from people, a lot of messages saying, man, I'm hurting. What do I do? What are the next steps? This episode is for you. So if you're hurting, if you're trying to figure out what's up, this is a positive episode. It's a exciting episode. What can we be doing right now? What's the action step? Sam is a wealth of knowledge. He's my business coach. He's Nick's business coach. He's written copy for our websites. He's a branding and marketing and sales expert. I mean, that's just what he does. And he focuses all of his time on things like this so we can do what we do. And so this episode is going to be huge for you. Before we get into the episode, I want to remind you about our friends over at Wedding Post House. Brady and his team over at Wedding Post House are killing it. They are a culling service. They will cull your wedding films for you. What does that mean? You're going to upload your footage, and within 5 business days, they're going to send it back to you. Organized, it's going to be labeled, it's going to be color coded, and only the good footage is going to be in the timeline. All of the ceremonies are synced. All of the speeches are synced. Any live moments, they're all synced. Any interviews, it's all synced. And if there's bride footage, it's all highlighted in pink. If there's groom footage, it's all highlighted in blue. It saves me on average a day to 2 days of time. And what happens is when I get that back, I click a few buttons and connect the project file they send to me, and I'm off to the races. I can get right in to listening to my A-roll. I can get right into editing, and it saves me 2 or 3 days worth of time every wedding. It's affordable. It's a great way to outsource part of what you're doing without losing the creative control. So head on over to howtofilmweddings.com/outsourcing if you need somebody to cull your footage for you. We highly recommend Wedding Post House. They have some special promos and deals over there, so check that out today. And without further ado, let's hop into this week's episode with Sam from Ideaction Consulting. All right, well, welcome back the one, the only Sam Jacobson to the podcast. Sam, say hello. How you been? Introduce yourself.
John, I'm so glad to be back here. I love chatting with you, and it's really cool for, I think, people in the audience to get to hear the conversation. You know, we are friends, but we love talking shop. And it's always a good conversation. I'm super excited. Fall is a great time of the year. I think the fall is my favorite time of the year, especially in weddings, because we get to think about what's coming up next year, and we get to strategize, and we get to plan out and map out what could be. And it's always fun to dream. When I worked at the resort that I was at for a dozen years, fall was when we did budgeting. Budgeting is when you make your plans. It always brings a smile to my face.
Yeah, that's super dorky, but I love it. It's exactly what brings a smile to my face too. And yeah, to be honest, the last month or so of our podcast has been a different tone than it's ever been since we started in 2018. And you and I have had a lot of conversations and, just friend to friend. And I was like, man, we should record a podcast together soon and just have a conversation because you're in a unique position as well as I'm in a unique position when it comes to I get to talk to lots of wedding filmmakers. You get to talk to lots of wedding professionals. We just finished a survey with over 800 responses of wedding filmmakers, what their year looks like this year, what their year looks like next year. So we actually have data now to prove things aren't as good as they used to be. I mean, I don't think we really needed it to be able to say that. But anyway, so the tenor has been a little bit more like what's going on? How do we weather the storm? I wanted to have you on because whenever I get done talking to you, I always feel like I get a shot in the arm of excitement of like, okay, there's opportunity here. There's excitement. I can hear it in your voice, but there is the reality that there's been a little bit of a dumpster fire in the background going for lots of us. So I wanted to dig in with you today just kind of about getting results in 2025. Last week, I talked about 5 ways to make more money in 2025, just looking at different things in your business and stuff like that. But I want to talk to you about 2025 and what you're seeing and how we can get results. But before that, what are you hearing in the industry in September of 2024? You've been going all over the country doing talks with people, speaking at events. What are you seeing from the people you're coaching when it comes to the landscape of the wedding industry moving into 2025? Any advice or thoughts on where things are heading or how we can be preparing for 2025?
Yeah, and you bring up, John, I think some important, perspectives that I can offer. I do coaching one-on-one with a number of clients every month. I tend to work a lot with photographers, planners, videographers, stationers, and venue and floral designers. I mean, lots of different people, but it's really photo, video planning is the kind of 80% of what we service. We also have over 100 copywriting and website design projects a year, which means that we're fielding literally hundreds of inquiries. And we always ask people, what's going on with your business? What's happening? What's it like for you? What are you struggling with? What are the issues? So, we have not just a pulse, but we have multiple pulses in multiple fields and multiple levels of price points throughout the wedding industry. And, I think that we're at a bit of a crescendo right now, or at least the crest of the current wave over the last, I'd say, 18 months of slowdown. And the feeling of slowdown has hit different people in different fields in different parts of the country and different price points at different times. But this slowdown has, it started back in really, I would say, late fall 22, early 23 were the first indicators. And that all seemed very natural given that we kind of had this big blowout after the the winding down of the pandemic. People had a bunch of money saved up. They hadn't been able to spend it on things like travel or events. They wanted to go nuts and go bonkers with their weddings, and they did. And then we all came back to reality, and there weren't huge cash reserves or stimulus checks. We had gone out and spent a bunch of money on travel. We had seen all of our friends. I think anybody who's celebrated Christmas or New Year's or Thanksgiving with their family knows that, it's probably more exciting to look forward to it than to actually do it. And so I think that a lot of people felt like they had got their fill and things slowed down. So I think that's kind of one contributor to where we're at right now. Another contributor, certainly the economy, and that has been pretty unstable. I mean, just today, the Dow fell a point, as S&P fell almost 2 points today, which is huge. And this is the second time this week that the S&P fell 2 points. So there's all sorts of uncertainty. Yes, there's been recoveries. There are V recoveries, which are, sharp drops, sharp increases, which are very, very scary to investors. And I think that that's really put a damper on the outlook. So it's very pessimistic. We're in the middle of an election cycle. It's always like this every 4 years when the election cycle happens. And I think this year more than any other year in recent memory, it's been very, very tumultuous and kind of taken over the news. In addition, I do believe that there is an engagement gap. I think it would be absolutely unfathomable to imagine that people got engaged at the same clip that they always have when there was a 6 to 18 month lockdown of social engagements. And I can't see how people were able to meet or advance their relationships at the same rate, knowing that there was a global pandemic in between 2020 and 2022. So I think we're seeing all of those things combine. And like you said, the dumpster fire, we're seeing this conflagration of influences that is creating a pretty chaotic and crazy and hard environment for everybody in the wedding industry right now, not just wedding videographers, but everybody.
Yeah. And that's a great synopsis of kind of what I've been feeling. And we've even gone a little further with wedding filmmakers to say, in the broad scope of the statistical looking at wedding filmmakers, all the reports kind of show video nearer to the bottom of the list of priority for people whenever they are cutting their budget. And a lot of people that are listening are serving the middle of the market and the middle class families. And, they might be saying, you know what, we're going to skip video. So there's a lot less people booking video. And then sometime about a year and a half ago, Sam, the advent of the content creator really started happening. And that has taken the place of a lot of jobs for wedding filmmakers. I've talked to a lot of people that said, yeah, I got beat out for a job based on somebody with an iPhone that's dumping all the footage the night of the wedding. And that's a reality. I mean, you can pay $1,500 for that or $3,000 for a 4-minute highlight. That's and so we've been talking a lot about adapting over here and like, what can we do? How can we adapt? I had an episode a few weeks ago about changing my pricing structure, making it lower to get in the door, working more on upselling and different things. Because I do serve a clientele that's a more affluent than the middle market, but I wouldn't consider myself anywhere near touching some of these ultra luxury weddings. And when I've talked to people in the luxury market, they're still booking lots of weddings because those high net worth individuals are still spending big numbers on weddings. Have you seen that with your communication with any of the people in the luxury market? Do you feel like they're getting hit hard as well, or do you feel like?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to get a kind of accurate and honest reading from anybody. If you're not in a, bound by an NDA like I am by my clients, because so many people are concerned that if they share their vulnerabilities of their business, that people are going to think that they're failures or that they're not going to get the referrals anymore or any number of things. And so I think that there's a lot of, I don't know if I'd go as far as smoke and mirrors, but there's certainly, half truths to how it's going. People may focus on only the glass half full, but avoid the glass half empty side of how things are in reality. I have plenty of colleagues and friends and even clients who are struggling at high price points. I think there's these two myths that are out there that need to be busted, fully. And one of them is that weddings are recession proof. If you go back and you look at the Great Recession from, 08, 09, even into 2010, you can see in the number of people who got married that there was a visible decline of number of weddings that occurred. People were clearly affected by not having enough money to either buy the engagement ring, to feel comfortable with day-to-day expenses if they spent a bunch of money on weddings, or they didn't feel like it was the right thing to blow a bunch of money on when their friends and family couldn't attend or fly out or, whatever it may be. The other myth is that luxury is recession proof or not susceptible to uncertainties or unpredictabilities in the marketplace. I think if anything, when you look at what the stock market does, it probably impacts the wealthy, the affluent, those who are hosting luxury and ultra luxury weddings more so than the people who are in the middle class, because inflation would really be a leading indicator of what we would see impacting them. It's not that people who are wealthy don't have money. It's just that the uncertainty breeds conservative spending. I was reading a report that in the affluent market specifically, that was done by one of the big market research firms for affluent buyers. And globally, the luxury market is down across all 9 major indicators. And in the United States, it's down specifically upwards of 7 or 8% year over year. So in the survey itself, they mentioned that those who were interviewed in the affluent class mentioned that a third of them thought that there was a recession happening right now, and almost half of them thought that there was going to be a recession in the next 3 months. And so they were holding back on spending because they weren't sure what was going to happen. So I do think that it hits everybody. I think that nobody is immune to the forces that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. And as you've been talking to more and more people, I know it's like, you and I have had candid conversations. I decided to rip the Band-Aid off last week and do an episode just saying, hey, I had to slash my prices. I need to eat. I need bookings and, eat the piece of humble pie, as I said, instead of the whole thing. And that's my decision for me and my brand. And I don't think everybody needs to do that. But, I was saying before we hit record, I just booked a wedding for January, and it's, about 2/3 as much as I usually have been charging. But maybe that's the new normal. Maybe that's where it is for, like, maybe that's where 2025 will be and 2026 will get back. If you were just looking at the forecast, what are you telling your clients, your people, when it comes to this bubble or this, gap or whatever, this, with the election ending and happening and all that stuff? What do you kind of see? You've been doing this for a bit. Do you think things kind of still plateau a little bit, flatten off in 2025? Do we need to hold down the fort in 2025 and hope that 2026 gets better? Do you have any kind of thoughts that you're telling people as they're making their plans for 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, right? I think, when you go through and look at what happens to the whole, it doesn't necessarily mean that your business itself needs to be impacted in the same way. If let's just say that the market's down a total of 7% or 8%. If you went through and looked at your business, you could be down 17% or you could be up 7%. It goes different ways depending on how we respond to the general macro conditions. And so what I would say for people who are thinking about their pricing is, if you haven't yet let go of the dream that was the price increases that happened in 21 and 22, and maybe you got away with it for a little in 23, or you're just now feeling it, go back to what was working. That is my simplest, best advice. I had 2 client calls that I did yesterday, and they were both with photo video clients, and we were looking at why they weren't converting. And what I was able to find with one of them is that there was an almost 40% price increase over the last 2 years. I don't know anything in the market conditions that have said, yeah, go for a 40% price increase. So what we did was we decided that he was going to go back to the prices where he was filling his calendar still at good conversion rates, whatever price that was. I don't have any, skin in the game. I get it. But I also know that you can't have too much ego when it comes to pricing. You've got to take what the market is saying your current value proposition is going to get. So go back to what was working. Look at when you were converting inquiries. Look at what was working well and start doing more of that. Fill in your calendar, get some dates on the books, start building up a cushion, a safety net, get your mojo back and feel confident on calls again, so that you don't go in feeling thirsty. Like, if I don't get this, then I'm going to go out of business. I'm going bankrupt. People who are talking to you, they can smell that, they can hear that, they can taste it in the air through the microphone and Zoom. It's that thick. And so you want to make sure that you feel confident, that you believe in your product and services, and that you're willing to show them how they can get all the good things that come with saying yes to you.
Yeah, I relate with that 150%. I was saying to Heather the other day, just like, I feel like Austin Powers when he's lost his mojo or whatever. And I'm like, man, I just feel like I got to get my mojo back. I got to, like, where is it? What happened? What's going on? Because, I'm over here working on how to film wedding stuff and doing surveys of filmmakers and teaching in our Mastermind group and doing all this stuff. And I kind of let John Bunn Films just be existing. I wasn't pushing too hard. And I looked up when I was on a trip to Montana. I was like, oh my goodness, that account is about to be overdrafted. When's my next wedding? Oh my goodness, I don't really have any coming up. I'm behind. I should have been paying better attention.
I want to speak to that, John. I want to leave you all with a metaphor, and then I'll let you pivot the conversation wherever you want to go. But I get such a good analogy that I want to leave everybody thinking about, and that is that you left your business on cruise control. Right? Like, that's essentially what you just said. Like everything was going good. I was coasting along. Things were working well. I was getting the inquiries. I was getting the kind of bookings that I wanted. One of the things that you pointed to is your bank account. And that's what a lot of people run their business by. How much money do I have in my bank account? In economics, we would call that a lagging indicator. Your bank account is what indicates what had happened in the past. And what we want to look at are leading indicators that will predict or forecast what is happening in the future. And so just to everybody, I would recommend not looking at your bank account, but instead looking at website traffic, engagement on Instagram. How many contacts are you having with your regular referral partners? What kind of inquiries are you getting? Those are the things that we want to pay attention to, because you'll be 3 to 6, maybe even 9 months ahead of the curve if you're looking at these leading indicators of lagging indicators. So think about your business as like an airplane, and just like any airplane, you know it takes a lot of energy to get up to the cruising altitude, and then once you hit cruising altitude, you're like, okay, cool, I can back off. I can let things kind of ride. I can even like put on a co-pilot and like go to the bathroom and come back, and like everything's going to be okay. But what's happening in our industry right now is that we're hitting turbulence. And just like you would never let your plane fly on cruise control through turbulence, you would take it off, you would have both hands on the wheel, you would be paying attention to all the instruments and the indicators and the lights and the signals. That's what you have to do right now as a business owner. You have to take your business off cruise control. You've got to get both hands on the steering wheel, both feet on the pedals. You have to constantly be paying attention to what's going on around you and adapting and adjusting in very small but important ways, rather than like just waiting for something to come out of the blue and just hit you, and all of a sudden the plane goes into a tailspin.
I'm loving this conversation, but before we move any further, I just want to remind you about our Mastermind program. That's right, our 5th year of How to Film Weddings Mastermind program is beginning at the turn of the year. I know we're talking in this episode a lot about getting results in 2025, and one of the things you can do, one of the best things you can do, is invest into something like our Mastermind program. This is a 1-year program where we're going to dive deep. We're going to walk through the tactical things that you could be doing and should be doing to focus on growing your business and not only surviving but thriving in your business. So if you head over to howtofilmweddings.com/mastermind, you can check it out, get on our wait list. We have guest speakers that come in and talk to us. We have a retreat that we do. Honestly, it's a community like none other in the wedding film world, and I would love to be one of your mentors and coaches for next year. So check it out. Go look at it over there. We've got videos on there. We've got what the program is, the curriculum, all over there at howtofilmweddings.com/mastermind. Now let's get back to the episode. I hope the people out there listening have a notepad, because that is gold, and it's the truth. It really is. And I think a lot of us, I was on a call with some former coaching students and just kind of checking in, seeing how things were going. And a couple people were like, yeah, I didn't really have any bookings this year, and I don't really have many bookings next year, but the economy's bad, and like started saying all these things. And I challenged that, like, what is your pricing? Like, what are you charging? And they're like, oh, I raised my prices after doing a rebrand. And I was like, but have you been booking? And like, no, but we're like holding firm because we know the value is worth it. And I was like, I don't know how you're eating right now, but you're in the middle of a storm, and maybe you don't need to be charging $8,000 or $5,000, whatever it was. I can't remember, but maybe you need to, like you said, revert back to what was working, get those bookings in and create those opportunities, create that momentum. There's just something about the fact that I've booked a few weddings in the last couple of weeks that does feel like you're getting your mojo back, but also that motion creates emotion. That movement creates the emotion. Like, I book a wedding maybe for a certain price, hook up a wedding planner, give her a great deal. I'm still happy with the amount of money coming in, but then she remembers I exist for the next one, and then I'm in front of her and she wants to book me more, and like whatever. Like, good things start happening whenever you do start doing those fine adjustments. And so if you're out there listening, Sam, what would you say are some fine-tune adjustments that you're helping your coaching clients do when the turbulence are hitting? You said go back to your prices or what was working. What other things kind of come to mind to you if someone's out there saying like, hey, 2025 is not looking so great. How can I get results in 2025?
Focus on the activities that you need to do to get the outcomes that you want. The challenge is that most people focus on the outcomes, the goals, rather than the activities, the process to get there. So we're talking about price right now, and price is just a quick fix. Most people, have probably overshot the value proposition because they were used to the market demand being so high. Market demand has gone back down, even below the pre-pandemic levels, and so you have to make sure that you're not overshooting the market and what it's willing to pay. But I'm not suggesting that that's a long-term strategy. It's just something that if you are really hurting right now and you feel like, or you know that you are priced above where the market's willing to pay, then it's time to go back down to what the market's willing to pay. But the real focus is to go back to the activities that will give you the outcomes that you want. I'm going to switch metaphors from an airplane to getting in shape, losing weight, getting to, a healthy lifestyle. A lot of people look at a scale, how much we weigh, as a measure of how healthy we are. So let's just use that. You don't get better by just standing on the scale and looking at it. And you wouldn't get better with your business if you just looked at how many bookings you have on the calendar or filled with the pricing. That's not going to be the ultimate determinant. To lose weight, to get the number you want on the scale, you got to move more or eat less, or a combination of both. When it comes to your business, you've got to go out and get back to the activities that you know will result in your pipeline filling with people who are interested. So got to go back to working hard in those activities that will feed your business. So things like fine-tuning your SEO, going through and looking at what is it like when somebody pulls up your name on Google, making sure that you're getting a ton of reviews to provide social proof for your potential clients, posting on Instagram. Even if you don't have a lot of fresh content, you've got to find ways to creatively share what it is that you're doing so that you can maintain your audience and the algorithm and engagement. Engage with your community. Don't just like or put a heart next to something when somebody comments or when somebody shows up in your DMs or posts on your stories. Instead, go through and carry on a conversation with them. What else are you doing? If you're not working, you have plenty of time to do this kind of work and so many other things. Update your website. Go through and make sure that everything is working. Adjust your contact form to make it easier for people to inquire. I will say this again, shorten your contact form. If you are editing while listening to this right now, stop editing, go shorten your contact form. You have to make it easy for people to inquire. They're not going to spend 20 minutes going through and filling out 17 different form fields, including which one of my films was the favorite one that you liked. What you really need is their email address. A name would be good, a date, and maybe where they're getting married, and then an open form field. Just use the contact form for what it was meant to do. Contact you, not collect information, not make it easy to fill out your CRM, not pre-qualify people by making it hard for them to work to get in your inbox so you know that you're only spending time with qualified buyers. Make it easy for people to buy. Those are a handful of activities. There's obviously so much more, but that's a great place to start if you're hurting for inquiries right now.
Yeah. I mean, all of that was obviously, I always have a pen and paper.
You were taking notes.
You're talking, I was taking notes because I think it's interesting. We think that there needs to be this big thing in our business that we just blow it up. So we change everything and the house is on fire and we got to it's burning down or whatever. And I think a lot of people that are listening haven't gone through a time like this in their business to where things are harder to get. And that doesn't mean, like, I think a lot of people are like, well, I guess that I'm no longer relevant or and it's the truth of the matter is it was just a lot easier to get bookings 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It was, the getting was good. We had an all-you-can-eat buffet of, it's like, sure, we'll eat all this. And it feels like we've put our packs on. We've gone out into the wilderness. We've walked around for a few days. Our beards have started to grow out. And, we're like, man, I really could use a bite to eat. I am starving. Is anybody else hungry? Where's all the food? I thought we packed more food. And I think that getting back to some of those basics that you're talking about, just thinking of things, your scale, looking down at the scale saying, whoa, I weigh more than I want to weigh. Okay, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. It's like, that doesn't work. And then the other side, on the whole fitness side of things, you can't just show up to the gym on day one, blow it out, tear a muscle or two, and think, okay, I'm going to get back on that scale on day two, and things are going to be all good. Once I started realizing there was kind of smoke coming from the back room in my business, I looked at my website. I updated some things. I took the pricing off of my website. I took the starting price off my website because I was like, I just want to get some inquiries. Like, I have put it back on since, but I was like, I I just want I want to see what happens. If that's the little kink in the flow in my business, and I've got inquiries, I went through and I've created a spreadsheet of all of my client, like past vendor like connections. Like I've got all my planners, all my photographers, that's all organized on a spreadsheet. And I went through and I said, who are some planners that I could go through and reach out with a vulnerable message, just saying where I was at, but in a way that felt like I wanted to help them. And I sent 14 text messages to 14 different planners just saying, hey, I don't know what your fall looks like. I'm looking at my calendar and a little piece of humble pie, but it's wide open in the fall. If you've got any couples that, fit this style, let me know. I'll hook you up. You can look good. Tell me a price. If it's, anything over this, I'm there. And out of the 14, one of the planners was like, I've got a couple on November 9th. They're amazing. They're going to get married in Oklahoma City. It's an hour drive from my house. They've got an $8,000 budget. I know you charge more than that. Can we make something work? I built a custom solo shooting package and all that. Like I modified it, made these little tweaks, got the booking, met with them 2 weeks later. They added $2,000 onto the package. And those little tweaks, go ahead.
I want to highlight that, John, because that's another thing that I think a lot of wedding professionals have a hard time with, is that we think that our work is a certain price, and we also think that the people who inquire have a fixed budget, and if those two things don't align, then it's not a good fit. You obviously said, hey, I'm willing to meet some people in the middle if they are as well. And you found that they were. Here's the thing that I want people to take away. And this is what I found when looking at my clients who are in photo and video, is that the average price that a couple has when they first inquire with you tends to go up between 10 and 30% from the initial amount that they were going to spend. That's pre-contract. So if they say we have $5,000, they'll likely go up to $6,000 before they sign the contract. And now here's where it gets really interesting. After they sign the contract, they're going to buy another 10 to 30% on top of that initial contract price through upsells, extra coverage, extra photographer, videographer, additional cuts, more sneak peeks, additional coverage on the rehearsal dinner, whatever it might be. So if somebody inquires with $5,000 and your package that you want to start at is really like $65,000 or $7,000, chances are that you can meet them in the middle with a $6,000 number, and then you can upsell them over the course of the client journey to get to that $6,500 or $7,000 more often than not. And we all know that some couples will choose somebody else based on $200, $300, $400, less expensive. So just remember that this is a conversation. This is a collaboration on what it is that the couple wants, what they have to spend, what it is that you want to provide, and what you want to make. And in this kind of climate right now, I think that the conversation is a good thing to have. The worst thing that can happen is you spend an extra little bit of your time, which again, if you're not doing a lot of weddings right now, you have plenty of it. And the only thing that you really have to let go of is your pride.
Yeah, and I don't only want to talk about price, but I wanted to talk about one more scenario that happened today right before this call. And then I would love to kind of talk through a couple of these other practical things that you mentioned that I think are super valuable. I had a couple reach out because I took my prices off my site. They said they had a $5,000 budget, and I connected with them. And for me, like, this time last year, my starting rate was $15,000. And so like me just even, last year when there's a buffet, it's like, I don't need to take that inquiry. I will forward that right along to somebody else. And now I'm out in the wilderness and I'm like, is that a deer out there? Oh my goodness, get the bow, get the arrow, get anything.
Not even
like
deer, it's just blueberries.
Yeah, it's like, it's something, and it's like, okay, well my mindset is not, I'm not this purist and was like, well, my art will sell itself. And it's like, well, it might. Like, we might get a big bison to walk by and let us feast, or we might need to eat the blueberries, or we might. And so I got this inquiry, and I met with her last week and just had an initial call with her and said, hey, I can get it down to like the 6,000 to 7,000 range if I send one of my other associate shooters to lead. But I built rapport with her, and I was like, why don't we do this? You were talking about wanting to share some of this with your mom. Do you want to get your mom back on a call next week and talk with me? And so today, this afternoon, we met, and I met with mom and her, and they went from 5,000 to booking me for 8,500. Like you said, they raised their budget. What is that?
60%, 65%.
Yeah. And I would say that I'm a really good salesperson. But like, and I'm very much patting myself on the back. But I do really well. Well, I'm a decently okay salesperson, but like that is true. I think a lot of people just don't know what their budget is. They're working, like they were telling me on the call, oh my goodness, everything is so much more expensive. Flowers cost more, cakes cost more. Everything just costs more. And I was able to talk them through what was important to them, and was able to say, hey, I could still send Joel, my second shooter, all these things that you're wanting are going to be around 7,500. But if you want me to be there, add another 1,000 to it, and I'll personally be there. Because they kept mentioning, man, we really like you and like the rapport we've built. And so I sent them the proposal. I sent them a text, and I just said, hey, as soon as you sign it, send me a text. I want to celebrate with you. And they sent me a text back an hour later, like, we're not going to look at anybody else. We've booked you. And they sent me the $2,500 retainer. I'm going to take my wife out for dinner tonight. It's going to be great. We're going to celebrate. And I think that it's been really, I'm a true, in my mind, entrepreneur. I love the hunt. I love the sale. I love the kill. I love all of it. I love taking care of people. But something shook in me to be like, things are different. Things are now different. We've crossed a bridge into a new normal. It might go back, but we might have crossed a bridge into a new normal. And it might be 5 or 6 years before we get back to the good old days of 2018 to 2022. And so I wanted to say that story just because if somebody's out there, I hope that helps you. You said so many other things, and I want to hit just a couple of them before we sign off for today. You've said it several times. It's like you don't have much going on anyway. You might as well do it. You might as well. And I think there's a lot of us like, well, I don't have Instagram content. What am I going to do? I've been downloading and reposting old posts. One of them 2 weeks ago got 10 million views. An old post that I've posted 3 years ago. Just a little clip of a groom messing up his vows. I got like 7 inquiries just from that. I got over 1,500 new followers, and I passed the 10,000 person follower rank, whatever. And people are finding me on Instagram and saying, I want to work with him. I like, there's those little bitty things, like SEO, updating your contact form. All these different things make a huge difference. I talked for a long time. Does anything strike you of anything I just said there you want to add to that?
No, I think it's great, John. I really do. I mean, I think the story, like the real life stories, are helpful because sales is such a private experience in a business. Nobody's really reading your emails or listening to your discovery calls, and so I think as a coach, I get to see that because I do sales process audits, I do coaching, I do proposal reviews, and so I see what happens, and I'm like, oh, it's such a simple little tweak we could do. So I do think that those little modifications will help out quite a bit. And yeah, like I mentioned, you got time and you got to put it towards the business. You can put it towards worrying or fretting over what thing to post or what your price is, but really go back to the activities that you need to do to stimulate the business and spend time doing those things. I want to mention one more thing, John, and because you mentioned it earlier, and this is, I think, really, really important, especially for the videography vendor category, and that is the way that things are shifting as far as video content goes. I was in a Facebook group. I can't remember if it was yours or somebody else's, and somebody asked, like, what's the most annoying trend that you're seeing in 2024? And everybody was like, social media content providers. And I'm like, why are you guys getting mad? You guys do that. Like, wouldn't that be amazing if the biggest trend was something that you did? And I think obviously reading between the lines, what everybody is saying is that people are wanting short form video content rather than medium length or in the wedding world, what we would consider long term, 6, 8, 10 minutes. And I think that we have to adapt. The video category has to adapt to what it is that couples want. I was just reading in Vogue the other day about how Gen Z is really looking for lower production value in their photos and videos. I was talking with a photography client of mine just the other day. She's in luxury, into the five figures. And she had started off as a fine art film photographer, and then she shifted to hybrid. Now she's doing a little bit more documentary with a bit of an editorial edge. And she's also starting to incorporate some of the, like 35 millimeter or Polaroid, disposable camera stuff. It's all photography that she's doing, but she's just rolling with the times and she's not having any problems getting booked. She's even incorporating, like a lot of other luxury photographers are, Super 8. Why? Because that's what their couples are demanding. So if you are a videographer, don't fight the current. Like, do you know how tiring and exhausting it is to fight the current? Like, if you're always swimming upstream, you are just going to exhaust yourself and eventually you'll drown. If instead you just decided to adapt to the way that the water was flowing, the currents were flowing, you're going to find that life's a lot more enjoyable. So instead of fighting against social media content creators, join them, beat them. Those social media content creators are either amateurs or they are business owners who are hiring contractors to go out and do what you could do better than them. You've already got the business that's set up for it. So I look at so many packages and pricing sets in my clients' work. And when I go through and I look at videographers, I see somebody charging, even like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, which is still a lot of money to somebody who's getting married. But let's just say like kind of mid-market prices. And what do they offer for that, say, $3,500 package? It could be 8 hours of coverage, 2 videographers, and a 4 to 6 minute film. And that's it. Like that's not a lot of value. Part of the reason why videographers are struggling to book that is because that looks real thin. There's not a lot of meat on that bone for the client to chew on. What we want to do is we want to start packing things in there. We want to start packing in things like previews and sneak peeks. We want to put in social media content. We want to put together, shorter length films in addition to the medium length films or the longer films. Come up with Super 8 as a way to add and, give it to your second for the dance floor or certain moments during the ceremony, whatever it might be. Get creative. If you are doing the same thing that you were doing 5 years ago or 3 years ago or even last year, there's a reason why people are passing over you in the budget, because you're not giving them something that they really want. Give them something that they really want. It's out there. Put a price tag to it, deliver it. You're gonna make your business a lot better that way.
Yeah, it's so relatable to, I've seen it. Like, I remember when I started back in '07, like high definition was the new thing. And there were people, it's like, I'm not going to film in high definition on hard drives. Like, we film on tapes. Like, that was the thing. It's like, okay, or that's going to take up 10 gigabytes of space. There's no way I'm going to film that much in my, my wedding films or whatever. I want to have these mini DV tapes, and that's how you film a wedding. And, cameras on tripods with wheels, rolling them around with big lights on them. And, it's like, this is that version. This is the Gen Z version of, like, they don't want what their parents had, and we're
They don't want
up.
what the millennial generation had, which was to make everything look Instagram perfect. This Gen Z generation wants authenticity. They want low key. They don't want to look like they're trying too hard, even though they might be trying really hard to not look like they're trying too hard. But if you are looking at the high tech gadgets and the best gear and the 4K this and all of the different things that you need to do to create something that looks like a movie, like if you really truly see yourself as a filmmaker, it's going to get harder and harder and harder for you to find people to sit down in your movie theater and watch your show. What do people want? They want to sit around in yoga pants and stretchy shorts, and they want to watch it on their couch and watch Netflix. It's the same thing that's happening in the movie industry is happening in the wedding film industry. People aren't wanting what they did before the pandemic. They want what they want now. And you can either continue to try and release movies to the theater and not have people show up and then have it go to streaming 4 weeks later, or you could just make a big deal about promoting it and selling it to the studios that are going to provide it to their streaming services. So, adapt or go away. I'm sorry to say it, but that's how the business world works. And if you love making films, make films, but do it as a hobby. If you can make films and do social media content or short form video content for wedding couples, and you're going to find your business is going to thrive in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. And, there's always that balance. I talk to a lot of people where it's like, I want to make beautiful art. And I think that's beautiful and great. I just think you also have to stack that against what the actual market is looking like right now. I know
you
a
can't
lot of
just
people.
be one or the other. It can't just be one of the. You got to be able to do both, right?
Correct.
I respect the art, but at the same time, there is that whole cliche of the starving artist, the struggling artist. Like people who are listening to this, I know you don't want to be that. So you've got to find a way to balance what you have, like you said, John, with I want to be a filmmaker and I want to be a business owner. And so you got to look at what does the audience want to buy from you, that you can produce that overlaps with your values and the creative expression, and also what it is that you can do to survive in this really tough environment.
Yeah, and to close, the conversation, it's like maybe you're hearing this and you're like, I don't want to make films unless I can make films, or I don't want to. We're not saying that you shouldn't or couldn't do art or make beautiful. Like I'm still continuing to make beautiful 8-minute films. Like I love doing that, and couples, my couples want that. I'm just saying and continuing to challenge you out there listening to adapt and be adaptable and be willing to adapt what you're doing. And maybe that means you pick up a job doing something else at the same time if you want to weather the storm that way, and you don't want to, but don't be the guy that is like, well, I'm never going to film in HD, or I'm never going to put my films on Facebook, or I'm never going to TikTok stupid and for the birds. And it's like, yeah, you can be over there yelling from the sideline, but in 2025, if you want to have results, you got to be paying attention to this kind of stuff. Sam, I think we could probably talk for about maybe 20 hours without stopping. I know you could.
You said something about 30 minutes, and I was giggling inside when you said that before we hit record.
I said we've been doing episodes in the 30 to 45 minutes, but I know that you have a lot of things that you're doing and offering. I know that we have an event coming up later this week as this episode drops. If people want to go deeper, because you're who I listen to help grow me as a business owner. You're who I pay to coach me and have paid to write copy for me and paid to do and have benefited greatly from you. So I give you, the John Bunn stamp of approval. That's why we keep having you on the podcast. Where can people, what's the next step for people with you? What's something good for them to connect with you so they can maybe take this conversation further or hear more about what you have to say? Because again, you're a spring of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge that I keep going back to get my drink and say, oh, okay, that's what I should be doing. Okay, cool. That's helpful, because you're thinking about this stuff all the time. You're diving into this. You're analyzing. Like this is your job to help us. So
I do full time. I obsess about this kind of stuff, and I try and provide that clarity for people who are willing to listen to it, like you. I think the state of the industry is a panel discussion that you're on with me later on this week, September 18th. Go ahead and sign up through our Instagram at Ideaction Consulting. It's going to be a good conversation if you can catch it. I'll likely put a replay of it out for people who sign up. So even if you can't make it on short notice, register and you'll get a video replay. We have people from all sorts of different segments and different fields talking about what's going on, and most importantly, what to do about it in 2025. We have obviously the Instagram account that I mentioned, Ideaction Consulting. Probably the best place to get consistent deep dives on topics is going to be my podcast, Own Your Business. I do most of them solo or with my wife, my business partner and better half, and Katie, who runs our copywriting and website design services. Those are really good places to get some free information. Obviously, we have for sale services, done for you services, template shop, a mastermind, other things. But get started with the free stuff, especially if your business is hurting right now, and try and find ways that you can pull these little nuggets from what it is that you see, put them into practice, put in, some time with that, and then take the next step when you're ready for the really good stuff and our expertise and done for you services. Reach out.
Yeah, and that's Ideaction. The word idea and action are combined together. You've got the A, just so people, Ideaction. And it's great. The podcast, you get straight to it. It's very put together. It's very helpful. It's, it comes out on Mondays, and I'm like itching for the next one. And it's always like, okay, yeah, that's helpful. It helps me get my eyes up. It helps me work on my business, not just in my business. And that's why it's called Own Your Business. So check that out. Come see us at the live State of the Industry in a couple days here. And follow Sam. Send him a DM. Tell him thanks for being on. I know his heart behind the scenes and what he's doing for this community is super helpful. So Sam, thanks again for taking the time. I know you don't have to do this. I know you don't need little old me, and I appreciate you taking the time for it.
I'm glad to be here, John. I like our conversations, and you provide an element of real that I think is super important in the space, because so much of us just put our best face on and pretend like nothing bad is happening behind the scenes. But, you're an open book, and the community is better for it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Sam, so much for being on the podcast and spewing knowledge for us and digging deep with us and helping us to not only survive in 2025, but to thrive. Man, that rhymed. Don't survive in 2025, thrive in 2025. Anyway, but seriously, thank you so much, Sam, for being here and for giving us this knowledge. If you're listening still, check out his Instagram page, check out his podcast. And as a reminder, sign up for that wait list for our mastermind group, howtofilmweddings.com/mastermind. If these things are helpful to you, we're going to go deep in 2025 in our mastermind group. We bring on people like Sam. He's taught every single year of our mastermind, and we just take it another level. And those little things that you can do, those little tweaks, that activity you can be focusing on today is what's going to help you propel your business and go further faster. So thank you guys again for being here. This community I can feel is getting tighter knit, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the future of How to Film Weddings and you and your business. So hopefully this episode was helpful. If there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. And until next time, we'll see you.